If the cities should become unsafe for whatever reason and you are one of the city dwellers and you need to escape that area, hopefully you've got someplace close by where you can escape to. If not, you're going to be dependent upon some sort of vehicle to get you, your belongings, your family, all the things that you should need to your next destination, if you want to call it a bug out location. I think the important thing to remember in a situation like this, if you should have to flee the city, is that you need to have all this stuff prepared ahead of time. You need to have your vehicle prepared ahead of time. All of the supplies that you need, have all these things sorted out. You can't wait till the last minute, because if you do, you're going to forget things, you're going to make mistakes, and then you could be in a lot of trouble. Let me know in the comments what your plan is. If you live in an urban or a suburban area, what is your plan? How will you flee that area if you should have to? Or are you planning on never leaving no matter what? Is it possible? So my family and I are doing an experiment right now. Basically, we're trying to see how self-sufficient we can be, how self-reliant we can be traveling essentially across the country. We've gone 1,700 miles so far, and we haven't stopped at a gas station for fuel. We haven't done anything other than one breakdown. And it wasn't really a major breakdown, but it was a major component that broke down. And I'll show clips of that as we go. So is it possible for us to travel basically across the country without having assistance, stopping for fuel, stopping for food, stopping for all the supplies and things that you might need? So let's say our destination is Utah, right? We've fled Atlanta because it's on fire from riots and whatever may cause that to happen. And our destination is family that we have in Utah. Can we make it there without having to stop anywhere? Can we avoid major highways, interstates and stuff like that, stick to back roads and make our way there successfully? One of the major issues with that is hauling fuel. So if you can't rely on gas stations, you can't stop for diesel fuel. That's what my truck is. What will you do? You got to haul all of that fuel. So if my truck gets 15 miles per gallon, that's going to take a lot of fuel to get there. Roughly, I don't know, a little over 100 gallons to make it there. So I think we can, I've accomplished that. I think my truck burns diesel fuel and vegetable oil, used vegetable oil. And you can see up here on top, I've got these, this is actually what vegetable oil comes in when it goes to the restaurants. These are called cubies. At least that's the common name of them. They hold about 4.5 gallons each. I kept them in the cardboard box to protect them because it's fairly thin plastic. And I've also got fuel stored in the back of the truck, which I'll show you in just a second. Obviously, it would be smart to have a safe destination that's much closer than 2,000 miles away, obviously. But this is kind of an extreme example, I think. So I've already went through 5 of my cubies, so they're 4.5 gallons each. Do the math on that. In the back of the truck, I've got these 3 pickle barrels that are sealed with gaskets on top. Those each carry, I think they're 15 gallons each, and I've gone through 3 of those already. So 3 of those, 5 of the cubies, plus whatever fuel I started with. But the cool thing is this, because I've been burning vegetable oil and I've got 2 fuel tanks in this truck, look at my fuel gauge for diesel fuel. That's how much I've burned. If you're bugging out with your family, you're gonna have to make sure that they stay fairly comfortable and entertained on this long voyage, right? So I've got blankets, pillows, so they can take naps, they can sleep. This is a fairly large vehicle, so there's room for them to spread out with the 3 of them in the back. Obviously, something bigger would be better as far as people space, but then you're limiting how much storage space you have. So this truck is pretty cool. One really big disadvantage to this truck is that it doesn't blend in, right? It sticks out like a sore thumb, at least in my opinion. It could have been just a regular old work truck and it would have blended in until I did all this stuff to it. Strap tires on the top and that kind of stuff, the big cubies on there, the camper cover on the back that doesn't really match the paint job. Yeah, I get it. It's got big tires on it, so it doesn't really blend in, but it's just, you know, it is what it is. And I was on a tight budget, so it wasn't like I'm sponsored by anybody and I spent $100,000 on some big giant earth roamer. Of course, it's possible to do that. You go buy everything. You can have somebody build you a rig. If you got the means, the funds to do it, go for it. Basic supplies. And the cool thing about this utility bed here is that I've got all the storage space for all the things that we need. We've got basic camp supplies. So this is the camping cabinet right here. I've got cookware, you know, pots and pans and things like that, cast iron skillet. We've got freeze-dried foods such as this one from Nutrient Survival, nuts and things like that. Basic camp stuff, ponchos, paper towels, all the things here that we might need. Wet wipes, man, this is a big one. If you're on an extended voyage for whatever reason and you don't have resupply, you don't have access to showers, We've bathed in creeks and stuff like that, which is highly recommended. Hygiene is key. If you don't keep yourself clean, you can get an infection, especially the ladies. All kinds of things can go wrong. So make sure you're keeping yourself clean. But if you have nothing else, just a pack of wet wipes like this, the big ones, man, if you just wipe yourself down, clean your whole body with a couple of these, you're good to go. Candles such as this, when we close up the back, this actually supplies quite a bit of heat inside of our camper cover back here. So we light up all 3 wicks, and it provides quite a bit of warmth that raised the temperature in there. I would say at least 10 degrees last night, and it was pretty chilly last night. It was probably in the 30s. First aid kit. If you're on the road, everybody wants to talk about guns and ammo and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, depending on the state of the world, of course, that's an important thing, and I would advise you to have that stuff. But by far, the more important thing, the most likely thing that you're going to encounter is some sort of collision or accident. And a really comprehensive first aid kit is important. I've got 2 of these floating around the truck in different places. Canteen cups, water bottles, all the stuff, shelter from the elements if you should break down, all that kind of stuff. Tarps where I can throw it down underneath the ground and lay on it if I've got to work on the truck. Really important. In here we have the essentials such as a watermelon. I don't know why we have a watermelon, but we've been carrying this all across the country. We just haven't eaten it yet. So we've got a watermelon, we've got camp furniture. This is actually a fold out, roll out table, which is pretty cool. But we haven't had the use for it because the truck has tables built in on both sides. It's got this, and then we obviously have the tailgate on the truck, and the bumper's huge, so we can sit stuff on there. So I haven't used that yet. So that's probably something that I wouldn't bring on the next excursion. But the chairs, the camp chairs, I have never camped. Listen, I'm not good at car camping. I've never done car camping really, except when I was little. I don't really know what to do. There's so much stuff. But now that I have camp chairs and space to carry all these things, it's been wonderful. In here is kind of just a miscellaneous grab bag of stuff. I've got funnels so I can fill up my fuel tank with the vegetable oil. Dirty clothes have been stuffed in here, dirty shoes, that kind of stuff. 5-gallon jerry can of water. And here's an additional 5-gallon jerry can of water that goes in that front compartment. We're only carrying 10 gallons of water because we can resupply in the creeks and streams and stuff around here. Middle America is kind of crappy. It's got lots of muddy, nasty, unclean water from all the farmland and stuff, at least in my opinion. But once we get out west, the water's crystal clear and it's everywhere. There's snow right over here behind us. So I've only got 10 gallons of water, and if you're going by the rule of 1 gallon per person per day, 10 gallons is not really that much. But if you can have a constant resupply, it's not that big a deal. And we also have water filters. I've got Grail water filters for drinking water, and I've got Sawyer water filters so we can replenish this stuff if we need. We've made a bunk up here with just a piece of plywood and some 2x3s. So the 2 younger kids sleep up on top on the bunk, and then me and my wife are sleeping down here, and that's what that big piece of foam is. That's so nice, actually. Again, I'm not used to luxurious car camping. This is fantastic. Aside from staying in hotels, this is about as comfy as I've ever been on the road trip before. So this is great. We're not sleeping in the dirt. We're not roughing it. So we've got a big foam mattress. So we sleep on the ground here. Plenty of space to sleep. We even watched movies last night in here. It was great while it was sleeting outside, freezing cold. Food storage in here, just in these plastic totes. All the dried stuff, canned goods, that kind of thing is in this big tote here. I've also got a couple of coolers. I don't like coolers. Coolers are a pain in the neck because you have to replenish ice. So I don't really like that, although we could use snow. Didn't really think about that till just now to keep things cool. So I much prefer dehydrated foods, canned foods, all that kind of stuff. If you're on foot, dehydrated stuff and freeze-dried stuff is the way to go. If you've got means of conveyance, such as a big vehicle like this or any kind of vehicle, canned goods are great. This light is fantastic. I think I got this one from Home Depot. It's magnetic, and it's really bright, and it does a good job of lighting up the inside of the bed here. And it's magnetic, so it sticks anywhere you want to put it. It's great. These parachute bags are awesome. Why are they awesome? Because you can fill them up with all kinds of big poofy sleeping bags and clothing and all that kind of stuff. But if they're empty, they take up no space at all. You can roll them up really, really small. So I like these green parachute bags. This is pretty much the girls' side of the truck over here. This has all their clothes, their feminine hygiene products, some bug sprays, hats, all that kind of stuff. This is where they stashed all their goods. Here's some medications. Actually, so medications and things of that sort are really important to bring along too, because if you can't stop at the CVS, you need to have those things with you. I've got basics like anti-diarrheals and anti-inflammatories, that kind of stuff on the other compartment over there. But here's some colloidal silver, and here's some charcoal for stomach ailments. So we just made sure we bring that, because those are going to be the most common things that you come across. In here, it's not very organized at the moment, but it started out pretty good. This is all my tools and such. So these are things that I can use to work on the truck if I should have any issues, you know, the common stuff, changing tires and all that kind of thing, jacks and a board to put on the ground, put my jack on so it doesn't sink in the dirt. I've got everything from motor oil to engine coolant to silicone spray, which I used on the window because the window was getting a little sticky. All that kind of thing. I've even got some silicone so I can seal up any holes in the back if it should be leaking at all, which it is a little bit. And these are the kids packs. Each of these packs has what the kids should need for basically a survival kit. It's got shelter in there. It's got a little bit of food, their canteen cups, water, all that stuff, just the basics in here in each of their packs, and they each have one of them. These little packs will hopefully be available soon. These are from PNW Bushcraft. This is a design of mine, and nothing fancy, but it works really good just for the basics, the essentials that you might need. Yeah. And again, just basic tools. I've got wrenches and ratchets and sockets and all the stuff, drills, all the things that I need, because I actually use this drill to pump some of the oil out of those big containers, those big 15-gallon pickle barrels. I use a drill pump to get that oil out of there and into my gas tank. Now, before I left, I went through this entire truck, top to bottom, and I checked everything. I rotated the tires, changed the oil, checked all the fluids, everything that I could, all the brakes. I checked everything that I possibly could to ensure that it was going to last the trip and make it to our destination. Yes, there's going to be things that are unforeseen. You can't know everything. You don't know exactly what's on the verge of breaking down. You just won't know. And this vehicle has over 200,000 miles on it, so you just don't know. Again, I'm on a budget. You could go out and buy a brand new thing, and it's probably going to be okay. Then again, I've heard a lot of bad stories about new vehicles breaking down right out of the shop. So anyway, I've gone through everything, and you can take a look at all the stuff I did to this truck building it on my channel, On3. The On3 Adventure Truck series is, I think there's 5 videos where from start to finish, where we built this truck from scratch, basically. I bought 3 trucks and built this one. But I've done everything that I possibly can to ensure that it is roadworthy as possible. It's got good tires. It's bigger tires with more clearance if we're going in more tucked away, isolated places, which is where I prefer to camp. On this trip, I avoid campgrounds. We're not staying in hotels, none of that. I'm trying to avoid people as much as possible on this trip. So we're sticking to back roads. We're tucking away in isolated areas. We're trying to be as self-sustained as possible and avoid as many people as possible on this trip. So truck is as ready to go as I could possibly make it. It's as fit as it can possibly be. In the fairly likely event of a breakdown, which we had on this trip, so the drive shaft, the rear drive shaft, fell out of the truck, hit the ground, but conveniently broke down near a friend's house that had all the tools that we needed. I have most of the tools that I needed to do the job, but I was lacking 2 things. A blowtorch to heat it up because the bolt broke and we needed to extract a broken bolt. I needed a blowtorch and I needed an extractor tool to pull that broken bolt out. And then we had to go to the auto parts and get spare parts. So that was one thing that I just couldn't have necessarily anticipated, unless you've got a trailer behind you with a spare parts of every imaginable kind. But if the likely event happens that you do break down beyond repair, you don't have what you need to be able to walk your way out of there. So if you do have to escape your vehicle for whatever reason, if it's broke down or it just becomes unsafe and you just can't pass through an area, you're trapped in there for whatever reason, who knows, you need to have a way to carry the supplies that you need. And this is an extra large backpack right here. This is bigger than what I would typically carry, and it's not full, which I think is important. Most people, when they get a backpack of whatever size it is, they cram it all the way up to the gills, right? But I like to have it a little bit free space in here, because that way I can have options and I can pull stuff from whatever the situation demands. I can have room to put things in there, and I can carry my kids' belongings because they just can't carry that much. So having a bag ready to go, I think, is a really, really important, especially if you're fleeing an urban area in a dangerous situation. I think something to be considered that's really important is having contacts along your route. So don't try to be necessarily as self-sufficient, self-reliant as what we're doing. You should have contacts along your route as best as you can, as all the way, especially if you're going a long distance, because if something should happen and you have to walk, hopefully it's not that far of a distance. And don't just have those in your phone, have those written down someplace on a pad of paper or whatever it is, like I've done. I've put the feelers out to all my friends, all my family and stuff, and I've got contacts along our route. So if we should need to, you know, it's still gonna be far potentially, it still could be a couple 100 miles, but that sure as heck beats 2,000 miles. So again, I think it's important to choose your route wisely. Stick to back roads, small, isolated places. Camp out in the outskirts. Don't go to the major cities. Avoid those at all costs. Stay off the interstates. Only bad things can happen there, even in good times. So even now, we stopped at a friend's house to fill up where we broke down. Right out his driveway. We stopped at a friend's house to fill up with some veggie oil and stopped there. It was in an urban area in a city, and it was a dangerous, relatively dangerous area as of now. And if we broke down there and didn't have friendlies in the area, it could be a dangerous situation for me and my family. So again, another reason to avoid the highly populated urban areas. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Thumbs up if you haven't done so already. Subscribe. That would be great. Leave lots of comments. Tell me what you think about this challenge that we're doing, this adventure, going cross country, trying to be as self-sufficient, self-reliant as possible. What's your plan? What would you do if you live in an urban area, which most of you do? If you live in an urban, suburban area, what's your plan? Are you ready? Don't expect to throw all this stuff together last minute. Don't just, if the city's on fire and, oh, we got to go. Don't just expect to have all the things that you need at a moment's notice. You need to think this stuff through.